Welcome back to New England Living. He oversees some of the country's nicest steakhouses. Now he's joining me in the test kitchen to show us the secret to cooking the perfect steak. Smith & Wollensky is one of America's premier steakhouses with locations across the country. From their famous 24-ounce bone-in ribeye to the porterhouse for two, their steaks are all hand-butchered and dry-aged on-site to ensure the very best quality meats. And the man in charge of overseeing it all is none other than Boston native and executive chef Matt King, who pays as much attention to his customers as he does his kitchen. Because for Matt and his team, service and experience are two of the most important ingredients. And yeah, of course, the steak. We are here at the Clark Sub-Zero and Wolf Test Kitchen, and I am joined by Chef Matt King. Matt, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, what do we have here today?
So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna cook some steak. We've got some New York strip, but I brought in a couple of pieces of USDA prime short loins. These have been dry aging in our restaurant for 30 days already. We do that kind of to intensify the flavor and make it more and more tender.
So I imagine the first part is selecting the right piece of beef.
Exactly. So you want to start with USDA prime, which is the USDA's grade of marbling or the fat throughout the meat. That's going to give you your juiciness, your tenderness that you want in the steak. You want to look at the color of the meat. This has a really nice redness to it. You don't really want to go with anything that's purple. That's a sign that you're looking at Holstein beef, which is dairy cattle, which can grade prime but doesn't eat the same as an Angus or Hereford piece of meat.
And you see so many recipes for seasoning a steak. For you, what's the best way?
So for me, if you start with the right ingredients, and we've got this beautiful steak with all this lovely marbling in there, all it really needs is some salt and pepper.
And you can cook a steak so many different ways. A lot of people use the grill, but today you have this cast iron pan.
Yeah, so today we're gonna go with cast iron. The reason for that really is we can do it inside. Not everybody's got a patio or a grill that they can work with. And you're gonna use cast iron because it has the ability to retain its heat. So when I put this steak in there, which has been sitting out for about 30 minutes, so it comes up to room temperature, it's not gonna cool the pan down. What I'm gonna add to this, you can use oil, but what I like to use is what we call love. Love is the fat that you trim off of the dry aged piece of meat, and then we render that down with a little bit of oil. If you're cooking steak, why not use a fat that tastes like steak?
It makes sense. Now, once we get to this part, what's the biggest mistake that people tend to make?
A couple of big things, right? My grandfather told me once, never stick a steak.
Okay.
So don't flip it with a fork. And people are in too much of a rush, right? So this is gonna have to go 5 or 6 minutes on one side, and then we're gonna flip it in 5 or 6 minutes on the next side. We really want that crust to form, the caramelization. If you wanna get technical, it's called the Maillard reaction, but really it's just deliciousness on the outside.
So those are all great tips for actually cooking the steak. Let's talk about what happens when it's done in the pan. So it looks delicious. I'm getting hungrier by the minute. How long did that actually take you?
So it takes about 12 minutes to cook in the pan, and then we're gonna let it rest for another 5 or 6 minutes, lets the juices kind of redistribute, so when we cut it open, they're not all over the cutting board, they're still in the steak.
So you showed us how to cook a delicious steak. Now can you show us how to make it look delicious once it's on the plate?
What I did here is I made some of our classic hash browns. Really traditional side at Smith & Wollensky. Very easy to make at home. It's potatoes, green peppers, onions, a little garlic, a whole bunch of butter.
Look at that.
So we have a nice medium rare steak here.
And this is the love that you were talking about before?
This is the love mixed with the butter that we put in there. We've got this little bit of thyme.
That looks incredible. And you made that pretty easy for all of us. So
Yeah, really
we can do
easy.
this too.
Exactly, just start with great product and keep it simple.
Okay, well, can we dig in?
Let's give it a try.
I'm not surprised at all, but that was delicious. Even better than I expected. And you can actually find all of these recipes on cbsboston.com/New England Living. Matt, thanks so much for joining us today. This is awesome.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Let's dig
Let's dig in.
Okay.